My keyword for spring is cozy. It's been mostly gray and rainy here, so I've actually gotten a lot of good reading done. I've read 2 Ottessa Moshfegh novels, one I loved, one I hated, and right now I am reading Eliza Clark's Penance. I'm still too early in the book to have a good gauge on whether or not I would like it, but I'm definitely interested. I do have an account on Literal Club if you're interested in seeing what I'm reading and reading my reviews on everything I read this year. When it's not raining, I've been gardening. I'm very mad at myself. It definitely killed most of my starts. The highlight of my spring was definitely my trip to New Orleans. I was sent there for a work trip, but I brought along my husband, and we tacked a couple extra days on to the end so that we could enjoy full days together in New Orleans. In many ways, it felt like a homecoming for me because I'm from a similarly swampy region of the South that is also fully defined by its African American culture in terms of art, music, and food. I haven't been home in 10 years, so it felt really good to see so many things that were very familiar to me and the things about the South that I miss the most. But I just have to say that New Orleans was grander on every scale, so much fun, so much intrigue, interest, and so much beauty. I got to meet up with an old friend there that I haven't seen in some time, which was wonderful, and they brought me to a burlesque cabaret show that was, of course, titillating and sexy, but also very funny and very inspiring, really talented people. It was a great time, and I loved seeing my friend. We also had, of course, amazing food, though thank goodness for my tour guide, Derek, because he warned me that the food in the French Quarter has gone seriously downhill. He said since COVID, it just really isn't hitting like it used to. And I do have to say that all of our French Quarter restaurants are probably in the lower half of my ranked tier of the best food that we had. My favorite food that we had was in the Warehouse District and in the Garden District. Shout out to the Rum House because we went there 2 days in a row. We loved it so much for lunch. And we had so many things we wanted to try. But I will say my favorite part was probably all of the time we spent in more natural settings. Of course, I went on a swamp tour, and it was just so beautiful out in the Louisiana wilderness. We also went to the aquarium, the insectarium, and the botanical gardens, and those are some of the memories that I'll probably cherish forever about my time there. New Orleans was definitely a much more high energy part of my springtime, but my cozy vibe has really been driven by my lack of energy, honestly. This is my go girl, give us nothing era, I think. I've just been spending a lot of my time and energy kind of seeking calming time because I'm really trying to heal my nervous system. I'm going through a lot of work changes in my day job. It's not just a day job to me. I have a full-time career in safe and affordable housing that's really near and dear to my heart, but because I work in government, it's really politicized. And right now, my department has been going through a lot of big changes. If you're local, you can read more about that in the news if you'd like. I am in a place in my career where I am learning about the future of my work life from the news more than I am from my day in the office sometimes. So it's just been really tricky for me to navigate. I feel very blessed. A lot of the changes that are happening are not happening in my position directly. I am very fortunate to be working on a team that is very narrowly focused on like one task and is funded in a relatively secure funding source. So very grateful. I have a lot to be grateful for, but there's just a lot of change happening. And even more than that, a lot of uncertainty. And those have been things that historically are really hard for me to hold. I don't like not knowing what's next. I always like a plan. So it's hard for me to just sit in the what's happening. But I am very proud of myself. I think that there are probably times in the past where I would have had some really large emotional displays about what's going on. And for me, really, it's just being lightly annoyed, a little scared, and just taking a lot of time to like heal and process in calming ways. So I'm doing a good job, okay? I'm doing a good job. Okay, first things first, fit check. I had to go get my hair done today, but also I was working from home for most of the day. I did pop into my office really quickly though, because I got something I'm really excited about. Went into Phoenix Books earlier this week, and what did I see there but this tiny, thin, very cheap, mind you, tracing light board. So basically the idea is that I can trace my sketches onto watercolor paper. Hopefully this is powerful enough because watercolor paper is pretty thick, but if so, it will make my life so much easier because I will show you what I do before. So this is really an example of country girls make do, okay? We gotta do what we can with the things that we have. So first I start flipping this guy around and then putting it real low. And this basically is my light table. And then what actually forms the table part of it, because this is just a small ring, I take actually a picture frame down. This is very ring. It's for sale on my website if you're interested. I actually just take a pane of glass out. And I use this pane of glass as the table. And then I put my piece of paper on here and I sit and I trace it from here, like with the light on. It is rough. We do what we can because we must. I only sketched the design on 1/4 of the page. My idea is that I can trace it into each corner onto the final page, but first I have to trace it through onto the back so that it's easily visible. On using black gouache as sort of the background. So I wetted some of my gouache here and I just want to like get some of this down. I think I'm gonna do mostly Hansa-Light with just a tiny bit of golden. And for the shadow, I will make it both more golden. Is it too cliche to just go straight black? Should I mix in maybe like a blue or something fun? Just a tiny bit of like Payne's Grapes. This would be kind of a shock. Yeah, I like that. I know you couldn't really see it while I was working on it, so here is my finished sort of experiment with palette. While I was thinking through all of the flowers I included, I realized that there's a lot more yellow than I was anticipating, which is not my strongest color. So let's see how it goes. I decided to start with green since it's the color I will be using most besides black. And I'm actually going to go in with the black last. One, to cover up any mistakes where I might accidentally paint outside the lines, but then secondly, so that I can avoid re-wetting the black on accident while I paint the flowers, risking sort of muddied flower colors. You'll notice that I'm working in a diagonal starting at the top left-hand corner and ending at the bottom right-hand corner, and this is to try to avoid smearing the paint with my own hand, kind of like when you're mopping a floor. My intention for vitriol was to create a faux medieval tapestry look to explain a tale as old as time. the toxic victim mentality. When we have a long-standing victim narrative about a certain situation, or God forbid, our lives in general, it becomes very easy to justify the negative behaviors we engage in. Everything we release onto the world becomes an act of self-defense. It allows for a lot of blind hypocrisy to all of the ways in which we contribute to a negative situation or push away the people who care about us, to excuse away our attacks and shortcomings with the "I'm just a baby" defense. I've certainly been in this situation, and it feels almost like being possessed by a force outside of me. Ultimately, that's just because I'm not taking control of my own emotional reactions. But as I get older, I find this narrative to be more difficult to stand, in myself and others. I thought a baby chick perfectly represented a typical harmless creature, but breathing flames like a dragon might make you think twice. I've surrounded the chick with flowers that have been associated with negative emotions in the Western florography canon of the Victorian English and French language of the flowers, biblical tales, and some of my own associations too. From the language of the flowers, yellow tulips have been associated with jealousy and rejection, petunias represent resentment and anger, and buttercup childish ungratefulness. In European medieval biblical lore, Lily of the Valley was associated with the Virgin Mary's ultimate sorrow at watching the death of her son, Jesus Christ. The falling flowers were associated with her tears and have been a mainstay at funerals for honoring grief and loss. The morning glories wrapping around our chick are a personal association of morning glories as a possessive force, invasive and making their way into any environment. Good morning. I just rolled out of bed, still in my PJs, feeling a little busted looking, but sorry, not sorry. I do have an interest in beauty and fashion, and I would like to look perfectly made up on all of these videos, trust me. But I just don't think I can add another obstacle to filming, and certainly not to painting in my life. I already put this shit off way too much. And I've just kind of been thinking a lot about this very specific time in my nation's history, this extremely precedented time, actually. I just don't think I can spend this time crying about having wrinkles or under eye bags or blonde eyebrows or whatever. So that means that if you see me in real life, hopefully you think, damn, she cleans up good. I did clean up good this weekend. I'm really sad I didn't get any fit vids. I went to the Plex Arts Fest this weekend. It's an experimental arts festival that happens here in Vermont. And it was so much fun. Unfortunately, the main reason I went, or at least the thing I was most excited about seeing, was a couple friends performing in what I'm guessing was an experimental sort of drag or burlesque type performance, just based on knowing what my friends are usually performing. I'll shout them out. Their names are Indigestion and Flora. So sorry I didn't get to see it. I didn't realize that there was a line. So we were hanging out for an hour in the gallery. Meanwhile, there's this huge snaking line that we were not a part of. So we ended up actually being the first group not allowed in. So basically the group in front of us was the last group allowed in. I did hear lots of oohs and ahs, so hopefully my friends all broke both of their legs and had a great performance. Again, my favorite pieces were probably, there's a series of pieces that were optical illusions from an artist I'm unfamiliar with named Linus Owens. And I also really enjoyed this sort of audience is part of the art piece that was there by another artist I'm unfamiliar with, Allison Ray. It was like a tufted rug situation and then a Walkman and a recliner, and it was called, I think, Field of Time. And the idea was just kind of to lose yourself to the music for a little bit. So me and my best friend listened to a Billie Holiday CD that was there. They had my favorite Billie Holiday song, which is a little bit of a deep cut, Gloomy Sunday. So me and my friend just kind of sang along in the gallery, and that was a lot of fun. So it's really hard for me to film in public, so I'm sorry that all I seem to have are 5-second clips, but I'm generally someone who doesn't love social media, so it's just kind of weird whipping out my phone to film these things in person. I still don't feel super confident in doing that yet. I also cracked open my art diary for the first time in quite a while to make some collages. They're not an embarrassing level of personal like the majority of my personal diary is, so I figured I would share them. I made these right around the spring equinox, so the first piece was an intention setting for how I'd like my spring to feel. Leisurely but luxurious, surrounded by the beauty of nature and with small indulgences. Laying back, calming the nervous system, and focusing on the little joys around me. I included the antique tray and the vintage phone because my relationship to technology in the modern world was such a huge theme of my winter and spring. Which brings me to my next piece, which was just processing the way I was feeling at the time around technology. Just feel like the surveillance state making its way into my pocket, hijacking my pleasure and reward system, filling my head with desires, insecurities, and a sense of hopelessness. And it's everywhere you go. This ultra-urban life where there's no privacy, regardless of the physical environment in which you occupy. Mean to go on a technology social media journey this winter and spring, but it ended up being this huge background theme to everything that was going on. It started really with this desire to be more brutally honest with myself about kind of excuses that I was telling myself not to live the life that I wanted. And that started really in my health journey, that I had a lot of great excuses not to deal with some EDS related injuries I had been dealing with. And then it kind of snowballed into my anxiety, and I decided in order to heal my frazzled nervous system, constant anxiety, and this sort of like lack of focus, attention span, memory, I was very forgetful, to kind of seek out a low stimulation environment for myself in the fall, early winter time. But what I realized is the things I had cut out, which were really obvious anxiety triggers for me, like drinking, going out at night, being in groups of strangers, these high stimulation things I had designated, I wasn't making a ton of progress, and I realized that's because the high stimulation environment was in my pocket all the time. I was accidentally losing just hours scrolling social media, and I genuinely felt worse most of the time when I walked away. I know that social media is a tool, and there's so many great things about it. That's why we're all on it. There are funny videos, there are cute animals, there are inspiring painters and speakers, really thought-provoking musings and articles. There are lots of great things, right? This is interspersed with plastic surgery videos, body checks, shopping hauls, constant evidence of crimes against humanity being committed, and then like always advertising. The platform is looking to show you things that will cause a reaction out of you, that will cause you to linger, to comment, whatever. And some of those things will be good, but a lot of those things will also be things that make you angry, upset, depressed, sad. Whatever they know gets you engaged. And they were doing a really good job on me. And then at the same time, in the late fall, was the US presidential election. And I started experiencing a lot of cognitive dissonance around supporting the people who are making money off of these platforms. Musk, Zuckerberg, and Rubo, the CEO that's in charge of the company that owns TikTok, all came out in some way to show support for or to try to curry favor from Donald Trump. And also, all of these organizations have some pretty serious accusations, like federal investigations, lawsuits, and stuff going into them about the way that they use our data and the way that they are socially manipulating us with algorithms. And that includes the way that they impacted our elections. That was sitting so heavily on my spirit. I realized that, honestly, it is just a part of being alive now to try to navigate the system of evil monopoly corporations. I get that. but just sitting with the fact that I'm essentially donating money every day to the worst people to ever have lived with my eyes and my attention span. And they're also making me like really self-conscious about my body and my life. I just couldn't hold both of those things. So, okay, I have a problem with social media. Wah, wah. Put down my phone. Wow, it was way harder than I thought. Social media addiction has got some hands. I didn't realize how addicted I was to social media until I started putting some like intentional boundaries around putting down my phone, and I was not doing a good job of it at all. So then I came to think about stronger boundaries, which included deleting some social media accounts and creating new ones. I deleted my Twitter after 16 years, deleted the app to TikTok, deleted my personal Instagram after 12 years to kind of just change how frequently I found myself looking towards it. I made a Blue Sky, which is a benefit corporation that's basically a Twitter replacement created by the creator of Twitter, where you get to just choose your algorithmic experience a lot more, and you can set it to just be people you follow, and it ends when your timeline ends. It's great. And then also I kept my personal art Instagram because I do feel that I engage a little bit healthier on that account. And I restarted my YouTube account because I think long form, nuanced content creates conversations that kind of mitigate some of the experiences I was having that I think might have been exacerbated by short form, endless content. The other thing, all of this has been a build up to this spring. I decided to get a new phone. I still have my iPhone. I'm filming on it right now, but it lives at home. And the only thing that I bring out with me now is my new phone, the Unihertz Pocket Titan. It's essentially a BlackBerry dupe, and I have long joked that consumer technology should have ended at the BlackBerry, so I felt that this was a very fun find. It is an Android phone. You can download any app, including social media, on here, but for me personally, I've decided not to download social media and use the nostalgia QWERTY keyboard factor to help remind me of a time in my life where I had a little bit better relationship with technology, which is like the early 2010s. I have heard from people who have downloaded social media on this phone that because the screen is small, it actually really isn't conducive to the like dopamine hits of scrolling social media anyway. But I personally only have Maps, Spotify, my banking app, my Pilates app, because I have to check in through this for my class, and I have a weather app, and I have like the Google browser. If you're interested in this phone, I did also want to say that it has some cons. It's really glitchy. Sometimes it'll randomly like mute me on a call and I have to put someone on hold and then take them off again for them to hear me again. It'll drop Bluetooth sometimes. The camera is terrible. Sometimes I've had to go onto Reddit to figure out little troubleshooting things about it. But overall, I was looking for a less convenient social media phone experience, and this has been really great for me. So if it's of interest to you, I would totally recommend trying it out. It was $200, which for a phone is pretty affordable, and I just put my SIM card in. I've had some huge revelations about how much time I was spending out in the world just like scrolling mindlessly on my phone. Now I'm kind of forced to bring a book or to daydream or to actually talk with someone directly and be fully present in that moment. This has just been a really great middle ground for me.